Good morning. Good morning, Tampa Bay. Happy Tuesday, October 18th. Channelside in the morning, live on the Channelside Sports Network. You know who I am. I am Danny. I am. It's been 114 days. 114 days since the Tampa Bay Lightning last took the ice at Amalie Arena as they welcome the Philadelphia Flyers tonight. Home opener, Tampa Bay Lightning looking to wash away the stink of the Colorado Avalanche, winning the Stanley Cup and hoisting Lord Stanley's Cup inside of Amalie Arena on our ice in Tampa Bay. Guys, we've been waiting for this day. We've been waiting for this. Outside of the regular season puck drop, which just happened a week ago, outside of that, we've been waiting for this day for 114 days. Just under what? 4 months we've been waiting for this? June 26th was the last time the Tampa Bay Lightning were on the ice, and I'm super pumped about it. We're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about the Orlando Magic opening up their season tomorrow in Detroit. We've got a couple of great games on the NBA slate tonight. And then I want to talk to you, Bucks fans. I want to talk, this is something we need to work on this together. We need to work through all of these emotions. We need to work through all of these feelings, good, bad, and different. We're going to talk about that and we got to figure out like where this team is. Where is this team? Because this team right now is not, they're not doing it for any of us really. That's the problem, right? This team's just not doing it for any of us. That's the problem. Shout out to Jay in the YouTube chat. Thank you for joining, sir. I guess, you know what? We'll start with the Bucks because I feel like yesterday we had a great chat about all of the issues that the Bucks currently have. I put out a poll yesterday. We had a poll on the Channelside Sports Network Twitter account. Basically a temperature check. And for those of you who have voted in that poll, we had three options. We're not worried, concerned, and panicking. According to where we are right now, just under 100 voters, 11% are not worried, 71% are concerned, and 18% are panicking. I voted that I am concerned. I'm not panicking, but I'm definitely worried. If anybody tells you that they're not worried, I think they're a little crazy. We need to be concerned with where this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is. You got to remember, we came into this season as the second favorited team to win the Super Bowl, as the number one favorited team to represent the NFC to win the Super Bowl. We have to remember that. And we don't look like that team. Jay in the chat says Bucks fans need to stop blaming Byron Leftwich. And look, I can't disagree with that. Bucks fans are right now they're looking for somebody to place the blame on. But I don't think it's any one particular person. I don't think that it's Byron Leftwich. I don't think that it's Todd Bowles. I don't think that it's just Tom Brady. I think it's a collective. It's a collective group effort to be at this 3-3 right now. Like we talked about it yesterday. The Falcons game was supposed to be the get right game. It wasn't. The Steelers were supposed to be the get right game. It wasn't. If the Panthers have to be the get right game, and then you can go on your streak because this is the easier portion of your schedule right now. This is the easiest part of the schedule that you have right now. We went through the schedule yesterday and it's not that easy. The Arizona Cardinals just traded for Robbie Anderson yesterday. And I know what you're saying. Oh, yeah, it's Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson is a streaky downfield burner. Sure, he only catches like 34% of his passes, but he's still a downfield burner. And by the way, they're going to have DeAndre Hopkins back. Right? Like, this is the Arizona Cardinals are going to get better. Right? The Bucs play the Arizona Cardinals on Christmas. The only two gimme games that the Buccaneers should have are the Carolina Panthers. Because that's it. The Atlanta Falcons are playing better than expected. I don't even know what anybody's expectations were for the Atlanta Falcons because they were so far under the radar heading into the season. I don't know what anybody's expectations of the Atlanta Falcons realistically were. Anderson looks like Crabman from My Name is Earl. That's a throwback right there. Jay in the YouTube chat just aged himself. And I guess me, because I know what that reference was as well. We've got, reports that Devin White is getting bored playing defense. Which to me is crazy. Is Tom Brady's mental game? Is he mentally in it? I don't know if I would say that he's not mentally in it, because all that we know from Tom Brady is screaming on the sideline, breaking tablets, and then how he is in the press conference. And this season has been no different than any previous season for Tom Brady in terms of what we can verbally and physically see from him. There's no difference in that aspect of it. We talked about the first two games. Tom Brady looks like he actually has more snap and more zip on the ball when he's throwing it. He's been unable to effectively connect with his core group of wide receivers. He struggled with connecting with Godwin in a couple of games. He struggled connecting with Mike Evans in a couple of games. He struggled connecting with Russell Gage. Obviously, Julio hasn't been there. I know that's a huge talking point for a lot of fans, is Julio Jones is stealing money. I'm still not sure, and we need to make sure that we're very crystal clear. Stop asking for Rob Gronkowski to come back, because he's going to have no effect on what this team is doing, because our tight ends are currently blocking better than the majority of our offensive line. We don't need Rob Gronkowski to come back. We need the offensive line to perform better. That's where it starts on offense for the Buccaneers. They're struggling to run the ball. It doesn't matter if Tom Brady was third in the league heading into last week in passing yards. That doesn't matter, because the offensive line is still struggling. Luke Gedeke is still literally dead last. I checked again this morning before we went live. Luke Gedeke is dead last amongst all offensive linemen. Dead last. It starts up front, guys. And if you can't stop the run on defense anymore, I don't know what happened to the defense, but the defense was so dominant. And this is what I've been trying to tell people, is the defense was so dominant in the first two weeks. They regressed just a little bit in week 3 against the Packers, just a little bit. But they were so dominant in those first 2 weeks, and they were so good in that third week, that's why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is still sitting as a top 8 defense in the NFL. That's the reason why. There is no fire in this team, Jay. You're correct. 100% correct. There is no fire. Todd Bowles said it the best. Living in a fantasy land. That's what some of these guys are doing right now. Some of them are living in a fantasy land. And I totally understand that there are some There are some guys, fans that wanted Todd Bowles to be more like Bruce Arians. That's as close as you're going to get to Bruce Arians right there. Stop living in the fantasy land. The time for talking is up. Time to put up or shut up. He's not going to specifically call out players. That's not Todd Bowles' MO. Todd Bowles isn't going to slap players in the back of the head on the sidelines like Bruce Arians did. That's not what's going to happen. Right? That's not what Todd Bowles does. But I'll tell you what, it's got to be better. Todd Bowles needs to be that spark. He needs to be that fire. Jay in the chat said we need Ryan Jensen back. We do. No, I don't know how many times I've said Ryan Jensen, you can statistically replace Ryan Jensen. You cannot replace anything else about Ryan Jensen. You cannot replace his leadership. You cannot replace his fire. You cannot replace his tenacity. You cannot replace certain things. He has that X factor, that inevitable variable that you look for in a player to be a leader. That's what Ryan Jensen has, and that's what we're missing from this offensive line. Do I think Luke Gedeke would be, a front runner for offensive rookie of the year if Jensen's there? I don't, right? But you got to imagine, Gedeke's got to be down in the dumps right now. He has to be. Because as a competitor, it doesn't matter if you're a rookie. It doesn't matter if you're a 10-year veteran. You want to perform well. You want to play well. Luke Gedeke has had a celebrity A-list of NFL defensive tackles to block. It's only natural that he's going to struggle. It's only natural he's going to struggle. There's so many guys. Not everybody's going to have a Tristan Wirfs like rookie season. It's just not going to happen. We have to understand that this is where this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is. 71% of the people that have been on this poll right now are concerned, and to me, that's exactly where the fan base needs to be, is concerned. Because if you're telling me you're not worried, you are one of those people that are sitting in the fantasy land that Todd Bowles is talking about. You can't tell me that you're not concerned. And 18% are panicking. And I understand where the panic is coming from already. I totally understand that. I get that you're looking for an out, right? You look at this Buccaneers team, and on paper, even with some of the injuries, you look at this Buccaneers team on paper and you're like, sweet. Yeah, we're definitely at least going to play in the Super Bowl. But we're not. It's not looking like it right now. The Buccaneers are currently 10th in the NFL power rankings. 10th. There are 4 NFC teams listed ahead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that they're now going to need to overcome to look like legitimate contenders once again, because right now they look like a team that is on the verge of losing a fairly weak division in the NFC South, with teams that have questions like the Atlanta Falcons, with teams that have questions like the New Orleans Saints. Of course, I left out the Carolina Panthers because the Panthers have questions, but the Panthers have no blueprint. They forgot their calculator. They're not going to they're not answering any questions on this test this season. But you've got the Philadelphia Eagles, the Minnesota Vikings, the New York Giants, and the Dallas Cowboys are all listed above the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How many times have we, the Eagles, we've said this all, me and my circle of other Bucs fans and football guys, we've all been saying this to each other all heading into the season. The Philadelphia Eagles by far had the most put together roster in all of football. The entire best put together roster, and it's showing right now. 6-0. The Eagles defense is on fire, and the Eagles offense is on fire as well. Jalen Hurts, I remember specifically, I was asked one time when I worked for USA Today to not cover the Lions or to cover the Bucks. I was asked one time to write my predictions for the NFL draft, and I said that Jalen Hurts was going to be the steal of the draft if he falls to the second round. And I was clowned so hard. I was laughed at. I was told I was an idiot. I didn't know what I was talking about. I should never talk about football again. Yada, yada, yada. Here we are. Jalen Hurts looks like a pretty damn formidable quarterback. Does he not? Tell me I'm crazy. But yeah, he does. He looks pretty damn good. Man, it's just falling from where the Buccaneers were to where they are currently. It's just it's crazy to me, and I know something's got to give, right? Tristan Wirfs on the 3-3 schedule said we haven't done anything yet. It ain't good. That's where we are. Your record is what you are, and we've got to get better. I think that's been the theme for everybody. Tom Brady posted on social media, football is hard. We're playing less than we're capable of. We will get better. We can say that we're going to get better all we want, but until we prove that, hey, we're going to get better, it's hard for us to sit here and say, yeah, we're going to get better. It's hard for us to believe it because it's just words right now. Is Tom Brady going to Robert Kraft's wedding affected? I just got a message on Twitter. No. Tom Brady going to Robert Kraft's wedding only affects the optics of how the team played on Sunday. Plenty of the current New England Patriots were at Robert Kraft's wedding, and they put up 38 points on Sunday. It's not... If the Patriots played like crap as well, then we could say, yeah, Robert Kraft's wedding severely affected how guys were playing. But it didn't. There's no correlation between Tom Brady's performance on Sunday and Robert Kraft's wedding on Friday. Yeah, but he missed a walkthrough on Saturday. What do you want? What? Tom Brady's going to do what Tom Brady's going to do. And I don't think that missing a walkthrough is what affected his performance on Sunday. He didn't play terrible. There were other quarterbacks that played worse than him that got a win. The problem is the Buccaneers for 3 wins and 3 losses have not put together a complete game. You can argue that the first week against the Dallas Cowboys to put together a complete game, and I'd be totally fine with that. But outside of that, 5 games have been incomplete. They've been incomplete games from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's problematic for this team. That's problematic for the team going forward because which way do you turn? Which way do you turn for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? November 1st, trade deadline is coming up. Do the Buccaneers make a move? They've got just over $3 million in cap space. Do they make them? I talked about this again yesterday. If the Buccaneers are going to make a move, who do you make a move for? Do you make a splash? Do you have to give away, do you make a splash, give away a star player? Do you trade somebody like a Carlton Davis? And I'm only using Carlton Davis because his cap hit is high. He's got a very large cap hit coming into next season as well. So do you move somebody like a Carlton Davis? Because you can kind of afford to move somebody like him. But who do you go after? Again, if I'm a GM and my phone rings and I see Jason Light's name pop up, I'm going to assume that he's calling about one of my offensive linemen, likely a guard. And two, I am going to rake him over the coals and I'm going to hold him hostage and say, okay, yeah, you want the 40th ranked left guard in the league? Sure, I'm going to charge you a premium because I know that once you address that offensive line, that you are now a Super Bowl contending team. That's what, that's the conundrum for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, is trying to address the situation. I don't think they have any holes on defense. They're just missing assignments. They're just blowing coverages. I don't think there's any holes on defense. I do think that there are holes on offense, though. I don't think it's at tight end. I think Cade Otton has played well. He had a costly drop and a bad penalty on Sunday, but outside of that, the rookie's played well. He's had 2 weeks with two incredible difficult catches. 2 weeks. I mean, he's playing as well as you possibly could imagine. Cole Keith has been blocking well. Cameron Brate, obviously, being evaluated for a neck injury, which I think, in my opinion, does kind of trigger that concussion protocol again anyway. That would be 2 in 2 weeks. We probably need to hold Cameron Brate out for another couple of weeks and, let that brain heal, man. The NFL has this emphasis on concussions, especially now after the Tua situation. And we're sitting here looking at, we're looking at guys. I mean, they're racking up concussions like we're scoring touchdowns in the league right now. It's not a good time for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, or the NFL. Hell, the NFL in general, in terms of concussions, not a good look. It's just not a good look for the NFL right now. The only real hole for this Buccaneers team is an offensive line. That's it. It could have been guard heading into the season because we don't know how Aaron Stinney would have performed. Aaron Stinney could have fallen flat on his face in this season and given up the job to Luke Gedeke, and we could still be in the same exact position because we had two. Sure, Stinney had experience, but it wasn't great experience, right? So we realistically had two unknown commodities at left guard heading into the season. There should have been some sort of move. I called for it. I know friends over at Bucks Life were calling for it. We were all calling for it. Make some sort of move and address the offensive line, and it wasn't done. And we're seeing what's happening right now. Tom Brady has gone from bottom quarterback in time to throw. They've improved a little bit. He has the third most time to or the third least time to throw. Great. But it's small wins that we need right now. These are the small wins. But again, I ask, what would the Buccaneers do? And we'll put this out on our socials as well. What did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do? What did they do for the trade deadline? Do they sit idle? Do they make some sort of move? If I'm Jason Light, I say, you know what? I'm going to look to make a splash move. I really am. I'm going to make some sort of splash. We do have a fairly deep defensive unit, especially in the secondary. D. Delaney, Zion McCollum. You can realistically, and it pains me to say this because I love Carlton Davis, and and his dad's great too. And it pains me to say this, but maybe you do call and you say, hey, Carlton Davis is on the block. Because it helps you with two things. It helps you open up cap space for the next 2 years because he's got a $15 million base salary the next 2 years. That helps. Tom Brady's got that $35 million dead cap hit, which the only way we could possibly get away for that is if we give him like a Bobby Bonilla type of contract. That's the only way that we can come out from under that, to make some sort of moves, because you have to look long term here as well. We can't just be playing to win by week. You have to play to win the Super Bowl and play to set yourself up for next season. That's the conundrum for the Buccaneers, is trying to play for next season. You know, the way it's looking right now, I'm 100% certain that Tom Brady does not come back next season. I know, greatest competitor of all time, all of these great things that we talk about Tom Brady in terms of, his desire to win, his will to win, um his credibility as a competitor. I know all of these things about Tom Brady. But he's looking like he's looking like a little bit of an older Tom Brady that has other things on his mind. He's trying to live his life. You got to remember, man, the guy's 45 years old. He hasn't really lived his life outside of making a lot of money and just creating business after business after business, and buying pickleball leagues, and creating the TB12 brand and the TB12 method. And, he hasn't really lived his life outside of this. And, whatever, marriage, whatever, all of those things kind of go hand in hand, right? Like that's the, I think regardless if the Buccaneers win, or the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl, if they miss the playoffs, they make the playoffs and don't make the Super Bowl, if they go to the Super Bowl and lose the Super Bowl, I think regardless, Tom Brady is out. And I think Tom Brady says, hey, came back, tried it, didn't really work out for us. And arguably Tom Brady's not playing well enough to do any sort of real heavy recruiting next season in the offseason, if he does happen to come back. Right? Like, where is Tom Brady? How good is a 46-year-old quarterback going to be able to recruit? And I don't it's not a slight on Tom Brady. It's not saying that, oh, he's regressed, he's no longer the greatest of all time. His accomplishments are his accomplishments. But there is a thing called playing too long. There is a certain that happens. We've seen that across all of our sports leagues. Man, I really, really wish that he would have just hung it up. I really wish this guy didn't play an extra season. I really would I'm thankful that Tom is here. We should all be thankful that Tom Brady is here right now, because without Tom Brady, we would probably not be 3-3. We would probably be 1-5, if not maybe 2-4. If it was not for Tom Brady, if we had Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask starting, you can't tell me that we've won more than 2 games with either of those guys at the helm. So it's not a lack of appreciation for Tom Brady, but it's a realization that, hey, this guy might be telling us, hey, I'm back because I have unfinished business. But how much do we realistically buy that he's 100% checked in? You know that old adage of, check your feelings at the door when you go to work? If you're in a bad mood, clock in. You're no longer supposed to be in a bad mood. Like, that to me kind of holds true here. That kind of holds true. Because we know that there's whatever you read in the tabloids and stuff, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But the Bucs got to do something to right the ship. I know Todd Bowles told us over and over and over during training camp, we believe in the guys that we have. We believe in the guys that we have. We believe in the guys that we have. And there's nothing wrong with believing in the team that you have. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong with that is believing in the guys that have routinely underperformed for 6 weeks. Believe in them all you want, but believe in them as a backup. Believe in them as a third stringer. Believe in them as a practice squad player, not as a starter, because they're not prepared to be a starter in this league. Got to do something, because 10th in the power rankings, that's not going to cut it for the Buccaneers. That's not going to cut it for this team, because this team is starting to show signs of unraveling. You know, this almost reminds me of the 2004 LA Lakers team, where they had obviously Shaq and Kobe, but they brought in the veteran Gary Payton. They brought in a veteran Karl Malone. They had They had all of these, they had Shaq and Kobe. Shaq was obviously, he came into the league in 1992. So he was 12 years in the league at that point. Obviously, he was a grizzled veteran. Gary Payton came into the league in 1989, grizzled veteran. Karl Malone, grizzled veteran. That's kind of what the Buccaneers are doing here. And it didn't work out for the Lakers. Sure, they made it to the NBA Finals, but they got wrecked by the Detroit Pistons. Younger team, functioned like a unit. That's a lot of the Buccaneers' issue right now, is they're not functioning as a unit. Guys are going out there trying to get theirs, and that kind of, especially on the defensive side, that's what we're seeing right now, is guys are going out there and they're just trying to get theirs. They're not trying to play a team defense. Kind of the same thing can be said for offense, right? Leonard Fournette is, I brought this up yesterday. Heading into Sunday's game, Leonard Fournette and Jeff Wilson Jr. of the San Francisco 49ers both had 74 carries on the season. Leonard Fournette averaged 2.1 yards before contact. Jeff Wilson Jr. averaged 3.8 yards per contact. And the San Francisco 49ers fan base is screaming, is literally, go on any Twitter space for the 49ers. They're literally screaming to improve their offensive line, because their offensive line is atrocious. If that offensive line is atrocious, what does that say about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line? Good Lord. If Jimmy Garoppolo is in the top 9 of quarterbacks with time to throw, and Tom Brady's in the bottom 3, what does that say about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line if the 49ers offensive line is terrible? There's serious problems with the line, and that's where it starts. Fix the line, score a bunch of points. Look at the Detroit Lions formula right now. Outside of the massacre in New England, right? Number 1 scoring team, number 1 points allowed on defense. But the Lions have an atrocious defense. They don't have any star players. They don't have a Shaq Barrett. They don't have a Levante David. They don't have one of the best linebacking cores in the NFL. They don't have one of the top secondaries in the NFL. The Detroit Lions have very bad players on defense. If you address the issues that this offensive line has for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they can start scoring 30 plus points like we've been accustomed to these last 2 years. They can do those things. And you don't think that the defense is good enough to hold? Regardless of being 3-3, what's the most points that this defense has allowed? Kansas City racked up 41 points? It wasn't all completely on the defense either. But Kansas City, outside of the Kansas City game, this defense they don't even play bend but don't break defense. They play solid shut you down defense. They held the Packers to 14 points. The Packers through week 3 were rolling. Sure, they lost to the Vikings in week 1. I knew that they were going to lose to the Vikings in week 1, though, and I'm not some sort of football prophet. But I expected the Packers to lose to the Vikings. I knew what the Packers were heading into the season. Packers were not a good team heading into the season. Their fans are setting fire to the bandwagon right now because they're not a good team into the season. Just got to do something, because 3-3. I know you hold the tiebreaker over the Falcons, and you hold a tiebreaker over the Saints because you beat both of them. And divisional wins are always, ideal. You have a chance on Sunday to go 3-0 in the division, and they should go 3-0. But also at the same time, they should have demolished the Falcons, and they should have comfortably beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I think were way better than their 1-4 record showed. And they proved it they proved it to us. 3-3 ain't gonna cut it, guys. It's not gonna cut it. NBA season starts tonight, which is super exciting. Obviously, the Magic will take court tomorrow in Detroit against the Pistons. And by the way, Jalen Suggs will be available. So you'll now have Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs. You're missing Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac. And look, guys, this is for the Magic. This is going to be a coming out party. I really believe that this is going to be a coming out party for the Orlando Magic this season, to where I don't want to say they put the league on notice, but they make everybody kind of do like the dog head tilt. Okay. The Magic came to play. Our Corey Hayes, our Orlando Magic beat writer, believes the Magic are going to finish 40-42 this season. I don't know if I'm confident saying 40 wins. I know that there are definitely lull periods where the team can get hot. And you know that youthful, young, energetic teams can really ride that wave of momentum. I'm still floating around the 32 wins for the Magic. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction. I would like for them to win, 40 games or so, because I feel like 40 games is going to put you arguably in the play-in game. I think 40 games should be good enough to get you to that level to where you can play to get into the playoffs. The Magic are currently sitting 23rd in the NBA power rankings heading into the season, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with teams, or analysts, I should say. I'm okay with analysts sleeping on this Magic team. I really am. I'm okay with not being viewed as a solid performing team yet. I'm okay with this team looking like they are young and unproven. I think that this is the coming out party to where they say, okay, this Magic team has come to play. They're not quite there yet, but they're good enough to gain some attention and gain some traction in terms of where they are right now. Is Terrence Ross going to come out? We were talking in the offseason. Terrence Ross doesn't really fit what the Magic are trying to do. But yeah, in the preseason, Terrence Ross was really stepping up, and he was really filling in that veteran leadership role. So maybe this is kind of a second wind for Terrence Ross right here. And maybe he's able to find his rhythm and make his mark on this team. So maybe they don't need to try and attract some, big name veteran free agent after this season is over. Wendell Carter Jr. said that he thinks that the Advent Health training facility in Orlando that they just opened up is going to do enough to attract veteran players to want to come and play for the Magic anyway. And that's just based off of the Performance Center. I mean, that thing is absolutely immaculate. You add on to the fact that, oh, hey, by the way, not only are you going to have this, but you're also going to come into a team that has elevated. They've won more than 22 games because that's all they won last year. They've won more than that. They're on the verge of breaking out as a playoff team, or they are a playoff team, but they're on the verge of becoming a solid playoff contender for the what, for the foreseeable future, I think you kind of have that opportunity to really make some sort of move and and shift the power. That's the exciting opportunity that presents itself for the Orlando Magic right now. And that's what makes me the most excited about the Magic is obviously the season starting tomorrow, but looking ahead already and saying like, because I don't see any way that this team regresses. I don't see this way that this team spins its wheels and wins, 22, 23 games again this season. I don't see any way that that's possible. I think we do see, I think tomorrow is a true testament. I've said this, I've said this a few times. The Pistons are rebuilding as well. Pistons fans have these similar expectations to what we have as Orlando Magic fans. There's very similar expectations amongst the fan bases. But I think the Detroit Pistons are a little bit ahead in terms of where they are in the rebuild. Now, does that mean that their players are going to perform better than the Magic? I don't think that that's what that means. I just saying like they started their rebuild before the Magic did. Where the Magic won is they were able to make those trades and get they were able to trade some of their guys that had names. Aaron Gordon's gone. Vucevic is gone, right? Like, but they got returns for them. You got Franz Wagner from that. You got Wendell Carter Jr. for that. Like, you were able to make these moves, and then you were able to hit in the draft with Wagner. You were able to scout Wendell Carter Jr. to say, okay, wow, look at this guy. This guy has something. What we've seen in the preseason right now is this guy has the capability of winning the most improved player of the year. That's what we've seen. You took these projects. You took Markelle Fultz, who was a first-round draft pick for the Sixers. Didn't quite work out. You've got Jalen Suggs. You've got Cole Anthony. You've got the number 1 overall draft pick in Paolo Banchero. You've got all of these great pieces. There's no way that the team regresses. I don't see any possible way that this team can regress. They've made the right moves. This is what you want in terms of a rebuild. The only possible question mark that you could have for this team right now is Jonathan Isaac. And he has to be a question mark for all of us. Jonathan Isaac has to be a question mark because he's still not ready to play. It's been over almost 800 days since he's played in an NBA game. So you can have the highest of hopes for Jonathan Isaac. You can say he's going to come back. He's going to win most improved player of the year. He's going to win 6th man of the year. He's going to come back and just dominate off the bench. You can have that expectation, but it still has to realistically remain as a question mark of where Jonathan Isaac actually is going to fall outside of having your high in the sky hopes for what Jonathan Isaac is going to be upon his return. There is a realistic possibility that Jonathan Isaac returns and is just a mediocre mid player. There is a chance that Jonathan Isaac comes back and he's mid. That's a realistic chance. There's a chance that Jonathan Isaac comes back and he does dominate off the bench. But the question mark is so big. It's like that Nick Young GIF file with the 35 question marks after his face, right? Like, that's how many question marks Jonathan Isaac has, but that's the only question mark right now that we have for this team. Our expectations should be low for this team. They're young. They should be low. They're young and they are unproven. But while we have low expectations, our excitement level should be through the freaking roof. That's where I think all of us as Orlando Magic fans need to be. That's where I think all of us live and die right now. Low expectations should be better. They should be better. You can have my expectations set to be a better team than you were last year. I don't think that that's unreasonable. I don't think that's an unreasonable thought thought process and state of mind to be in, is that this team is going to win 30 plus games. The over under is 26 and a half. And I've said all off season, all preseason, throughout training camp, smash the over button. But my expectations are realistic. They might just barely miss the playoffs. And if that's my realistic expectation, I hope that they make the playoffs. I think they have the potential to make the playoffs. But I'm setting myself up to know that, hey, this is a young team, relatively unproven, arguably going to have a rookie leader in Paulo Banchero. We've got questions. Does Bobo step up? Does Mo Bamba step up? How does Jonathan Isaac come back? We have to keep our expectations realistic, but our excitement high. And it begins tomorrow. And I'm super pumped. And you should be too. And that's the great part about this Orlando Magic team. I know way back when, right before the NBA draft, a Twitter user sent me a message and said, I don't care if Paulo Banchero is like the next LeBron James, something along these lines, but I want Paulo Banchero to increase the excitement of this fan base that is very demoralized. And he has. He's done all of that and more. And we've seen it through the preseason. We saw what Wagner was doing for Germany in the FIBA tournament. We've seen so many positive things. We saw the chemistry that this team already shows in the preseason. 4-1 in the preseason. Again, for a young team, don't tell me that the preseason doesn't matter. The preseason is very important when you've got a young roster. When you're rebuilding, the preseason is very important because you're not exactly sure of who's going to fit where when you're rebuilding your roster. So the preseason is very much an important note heading into the season in any sport if you're rebuilding. Sixers at Celtics tonight. I'm looking forward to this game. I've got weird expectations for the Sixers heading into this season. It looks like James Harden is taking it serious. It looks like James Harden is slimmed down in weight. He's kind of got, it looks like he's been hitting the weight room. Like he's really ready to say, hey, let's get this done with Joel Embiid. The problem for James Harden is that he can, on a dime, he could just turn on a dime and go, yeah, I'm done. I don't care anymore. He did it to Brooklyn. Nobody knew that he didn't want to be in Brooklyn until he got traded to Philly and said, yeah, I just didn't want to be there anymore. Nobody knew that. You couldn't tell that, but you could tell that he wasn't playing with the same tenacity at the end of his run in Brooklyn. You could tell that he wasn't playing with that same, he didn't care as much. So I'm looking forward to the Celtics and the Sixers tonight because I feel like this is going to be two powerhouses in the Eastern Conference. And I want to see what each of these teams looks like. You know, obviously you're not going to be in midseason form right now, but I want to see how these teams come out of the gate. And then I want to compare it to how the Orlando Magic come out of the gate tomorrow night. Lakers and Warriors. I grew up a Laker fan. I know people are going to say, that's crazy. Grew up in Detroit. You're bandwagon. I grew up a Laker fan because I got to see Kobe Bryant play in high school. And I was a Kobe Bryant fan. Had the Charlotte Hornets not traded Kobe to the Lakers on draft night for freaking Vlade Divac, I would have been a Charlotte Hornets fan. Because I was a Kobe Bryant fan and I just stuck with him. Lakers at Warriors. See, here's what's crazy about it is I can look at the Lakers and I can have a million more questions about this Los Angeles Lakers team than I can have about the Orlando Magic. Because we kind of know what we're expecting from the Magic, right? We kind of know what to expect from this team. And we kind of like, I don't know, it's just it's a weird dynamic for me because I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know what version of LeBron we're going to get. We don't know if we're going to get a healthy Anthony Davis. We don't know if we're going to get still falling off Russell Westbrook. Right? You don't know what you're going to get from this Lakers team, but we kind of know what to expect from the Magic team. We're going to expect fun. We're going to expect, fireworks. We're going to expect to win some close games. We're going to expect to blow out some teams, and we're going to expect to be blown out sometimes. It's just going to happen. But the Lakers, you don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers. Obviously, you've got all of these other, internal storylines with the Warriors and Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. You know, Clay Thompson is Clay Thompson doesn't look like the Clay Thompson of old, but I don't know if he needs to be. But I'm hoping for the sake of being a fan of the sport that we do see him take another step forward in terms of returning to Clay Thompson form. Steph Curry, obviously, Chef Curry. What can you say about him? But it's a solid slate tonight. Two real big games of teams that should both be contenders in their respective conference and in their division. Like it's just two teams that should be two games, four teams that should be very solid. Which is just it's an exciting way to start off the season. Of course, we do have to battle it back and forth because we do have the Lightning home opener, as I touched on the very beginning of the show. It's been 114 days since this team has taken the ice at Amalie Arena. The season didn't necessarily start out the way we wanted to, but I'm glad that Brian Elliott was the goalie against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm not happy that it was a 5-2 loss, but I want to see more Brian Elliott on the ice during the regular season than we saw last year. I want Andrei Vasilevsky to be well rested throughout the season because I know that realistically, there's not really much of a chance that the Lightning missed the playoffs, right? There's got to be a catastrophic collapse inside of the organization where John Cooper forgets how to coach. We've got multiple injuries. There's got to be a catastrophic collapse for this team to not make the playoffs. So I want Andrei Vasilevsky to be well rested. Like we know Mikhail Sergachev is going to play a lot. He's going to be on the ice a lot. Sorelli's out. McDonough's gone. He's going to. Mikhail Sergachev is probably going to be the most tired guy on the Lightning roster throughout the entire season, just for the number of minutes that he's going to have on the ice. And we know how well the Lightning play at home. So it'll be nice for the Lightning to get this win tonight over the Flyers. Especially for the home fans. Right? Like the last thing that we saw on that ice was Nathan McKinnon holding up Lord Stanley's cup. That was the last thing that we saw. And it was bitter. It tastes bitter. I could still taste it right now, and it pisses me off just thinking about it. They were the better team. I'll give them that. They were the better team overall. We could talk about the line change, 25 feet we could talk about all of that, but at the end of all of it, the Colorado Avalanche were the better team, and the better team did win the Stanley Cup. That's what it boils down to. Would it have been? It would have been a dream to have the three-peat. First team since the 80s. Hell, Henry Yoho, our senior Lightning analyst, wasn't even a thought in the 80s. Our beat writer Corey Hayes for the Magic wasn't even a thought in the 80s. But here I am. I was born in 86. The Islanders were still winning Stanley Cups then. Evan was born before that. He was, I mean, like, but you get what I'm saying is like, that's how long of a time gap it had been. And it would have been great to win it. And I would still argue that the Lightning did create a dynasty, even in the loss, especially if they can get back to the cup this year and get to 4 straight Stanley Cups. Obviously, bringing it back to Tampa would be the ideal scenario. But if you can get to 4 straight Stanley Cups, regardless, I think you have to be viewed as a dynasty in the NHL and have that team name. Have your core of Stamkos and Kuch and Victor Hedman and Andrei Vasilevsky, and have those names mentioned among some of the greatest teams of all time. I think you have to do that. Led by, of course, John Cooper. I think you have to do that, especially if they get to 4 straight Stanley Cups. Who knows? I'm looking forward to it. I hope you're looking forward to it. It's the greatest time right now. If only the Rays were still playing and playing in New York instead of the Guardians, right? It's the greatest time right now is October. Greatest time to be a sports fan. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it because I 100% strongly believe that to be true. I'm excited. Home opener tonight, Amalie Arena. Make sure you are following us on all of the social media platforms. Search for the Channelside Sports Network. We're on TikTok, and we're doing big things on TikTok. We're getting almost 125,000 plays every single day on TikTok. It's ridiculous. Same thing. Search for Channelside Sports. You'll find us all the social media platforms. Give us a shout out. If you've got a cool little nugget of information, slide in the DMs. Let us hear it. If you've got thoughts, slide in the DMs. Let us hear it. We're not better than anybody. We'll chop it up with everybody. And that's what we do here. Be excited. Be excited, sports fans. October is the month. The Lightning hit the ice. The Magic hit the ice. The Bucks, I know, are not as exciting as we were hoping, but it's still NFL football, and NFL football still reigns supreme over all sports in the entire U.S. And the Buccaneers still have the greatest quarterback of all time. They still have, on paper at least, one of the best rosters in the league. So let's try to find the silver lining in everything and enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Enjoy ourselves. That's going to do it for us today on this Tuesday edition of Channelside in the Morning, live from the Channelside Sports Network. I am Danny. We are going to do it all over again tomorrow on Hump Day, Wednesday, October 19th. Enjoy the Lightning game. Let's hope we get that dub on the home ice. Wash away some of that stink from the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup.